Okay, what's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday morning. Got a buddy of mine on, Josh Zieglowsky, and I appreciate you being on, Josh. As you know, I've told this program to a few associates and friends, and definitely had some questions that pop up. So I think what a better opportunity have you on, address these directly, and show them what the great opportunity is. So appreciate you. I know you got to leave soon for Cabo, so we'll kind of blitz through these rather quick, and you'll be on your way. So again, thank you for being on this Saturday morning. We'll just dive right in. What exactly is ERC money, and who is this for?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. So what ERC is, and let me back up a little bit. My background is, I always tell people, is I'm not a tax guy, because this ERC is, it's a tax refund check that you can get for having W-2 employees. My background is I'm actually a commercial real estate investor. Been doing real estate investing for almost 20 years, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I've had several businesses, and where this came about is, if you've ever heard of PPP or EIDL, those were programs that were done through the pandemic. Business owners were given that money to help pay their employees. Well, that was through the CARES Act. And a year later, well, ERC actually came around the same time as PPP, but you could not do both. In March of 21, President Biden amended the CARES Act and called it the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And he made it so if you got PPP, you can now get ERC. That was in March of 21. It's been amended 5 times. And we'll go through some things that have changed, where people have thought, hey, I wasn't able to get this before, but now, I have a bigger chance of getting this. I mean, they've said, and there's a Forbes article that you can, tell people about or drop, but 70–80% of people or companies that have W-2 employees deserve this, and so there's a pre-qualifying piece that we'll definitely go through. But ERC is called the Employee Retention Credit. You can get up to $26,000 per W-2 employee. It's money that you do not have to pay back. So it's something that you can help with your business or pay dividends to your business partners.
Right, gotcha. So this was obviously set up to prevent, small businesses and whatnot from going belly up during the pandemic. And as you mentioned, it's been changed a lot of times. And now that's the interesting thing, is when I tell a lot of my associates or friends about this, sometimes they're coming back with information that seems a little bit outdated, such as, oh, you received the PPP money, or this year was better than another year. And the reality is, right, is that the requirements have been broadened, I guess you could say, as of late, right?
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, it was an opportunity, because, and how I really got it started is, I'm a business owner. I had an oil business in Wyoming that was struggling, being that, we've seen what oil prices have done the last little bit. And Wyoming's a big oil town. I live in Utah, and we were trying to get extra stimulus money for our business. And when someone told me about this, I looked into it. I Googled ERC credit, went to the IRS site, figured, hey, it's IRS, so I should talk to my tax person. That's why I kind of started that. I'm not a tax guy, but I've gotten the right people and the right team in place. We've gone from 6 partners up to 160 employees right now.
Wow.
That's how big this has been getting, nationwide. But I saw, like, CPAs just aren't, well, majority of them aren't doing this, and majority as in 90%. It's something that, can they do it? Yes, but it's very cumbersome. It takes a lot of time. And usually these CPAs, they have a book of business of 100, 300 clients where they can't get to it. And so, but the piece of that is, we specialize in this, right? And so with those amendments that you're talking about is, someone told me even a couple weeks ago, hey, my CPA said I didn't qualify in the summer, but now you're saying I qualify. And I said, that was probably true back in the summer. I would have said the same thing, because back then you had to have a 20% decrease in revenue, because some people are telling me, like, dude, I made 21 was my best year ever.
Right. Great.
That's not the qualification now. During the pandemic in 21, especially, did you have a supply chain disruption? Well, yeah, but when I changed my business model, I made more money. Doesn't matter. Did you have a supply chain disruption? Because if you did, you can qualify. It's either 20% decrease in revenue or a supply chain. Before it was just a 20% decrease. So your CPA or whoever told you back in last summer, your tax professional probably was right. But we are watching this like a hawk because this is a 2 to 3 year opportunity for business owners. And people always say, whoa, 2 to 3 years. I thought this expired. It did. It expired the end of third quarter, but we can amend your 941 reports or returns for 3 years.
Gotcha. So they could literally, right now, someone could start this and they're still within that time frame.
Yep. It's until the money's gone. How much money is available there? They're estimating 400 billion.
Okay.
At the end of third quarter, only 10% of it had been used.
Right. And that's probably why they made these changes, right? Because it's, barely any of it was touched. And so now when they brought in these requirements, now people are, as I understand it, they're kind of catching on, right? The cat's kind of getting out of the bag, so to speak.
It's exactly why they did that. And in the last 90 days, I mean, we're increasing every month. In the month of February, we did over $200 million of credit. Our company, we're estimating that we're going to be around 10 to 20 billion in credit. So you think about that, that's almost 5% of the full amount, right. But it's going fast. So in other words, when business owners are starting to act now, because if they act too late, like PPP, the door will be closed. People like, oh, well, I'll just get to the PPP when I get a minute. And then all of a sudden they close the door and said, money's out. Sorry, guys. This will be the same thing.
Right. So just to recap a little bit, if somebody did receive EIDL money, they're still potentially eligible for ERC money. Is that correct?
Yeah, PPP or EIDL.
Okay, gotcha. So even if they did any of that, now also as far as if this was their best year, there's still potentially, as long as there is a quote unquote supply chain issue. What exactly is defined as a supply chain issue?
Before I answer that, I want to add to what you're saying there. What business owners need to do is not pre-qualify themselves. Our website, when they go through the questions, it takes 5 or 10 minutes. We do not ask for a credit card. We don't ask for payment. You'll know if you have an opportunity to receive money. So you have 5 or 10 minutes to go through some questions. It'll tell you a range of what you could be approved for. Like, let's say $100,000 to $300,000. We ask for 2 to 3 documents, your 941s, your PPP loan information, if you got it, and then an employee report. Once we receive that, in about 7 to 14 days, we come back to the penny on what you're approved for. Let's say $343,000.21. Do you want us to file? You still have an opportunity to back out. 98% of people still move forward, but you have an opportunity because we don't take payment up front. We take 15% on the credit amount. So we want this to be a win-win situation. But again, I wanted to add to what you're saying. Do not pre-qualify yourself. Don't think like, oh, well, I probably don't qualify.
Right.
Go through the 5 or 10 minutes. Now, to answer your question on the supply chain, it's very broad, right? So the one thing I thought of when the supply chain came out, and we had 3 different attorney firms look into it for us as well. And we finally defined it, because when I first heard of it, I thought of, a widget. They're just talking about a widget that's sitting at the port on the eastern seaboard or the western seaboard, right? No, it's whatever the supply chain is. In other words, like an example, if you're an attorney, and both attorney firms said, yeah, that's exactly a supply chain. Attorney firms, courthouses have been shut down, canceled, postponed due to the pandemic, due to COVID-19. So because of that, that's their supply. They can't go into courthouses. They can't even do Zoom calls because of certain supplies. So things are postponed. So clients are out of different things, right? They can't do things. That's their supply.
Right.
It's not that widget that I thought of, on the eastern and western seaboard, right? So right. It's just whatever is affecting their business. If they had a delay of a shipment or whatever it is, even though they made more money in 21, it has nothing to do with that. And it is hard for business owners to think that, because they're like, gosh, I did so well. There's an opportunity to even get more. Yep.
Right.
Because what if, like, I had a dealership, they're like, oh, we made the most money in 21. What if you had more cars? Did you have a supply chain of cars? Oh, yeah. We would have made more money if we would have had not a supply chain. There you go.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you clarifying that, because when I thought of originally supply chain issues, I'm thinking, like my buddies who are landscapers and whatnot, okay, material that they can't get at the job sites, or the electricians or whatnot, but this is like a broader scope. And just as you were mentioning, I was saying, listen, it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to fill, all the information out. It'll tell you, if you're qualified or not. Hey, listen, 10 minutes out of your time to see if you have free money. That sounds like a win to me. Now, sometimes I get a little pushback when I say free money, because sometimes people say, well, you get taxed on it. And I kid around back. I said, give me 10 grand, I'll give you 3 grand back all day long. So tell me a little bit about the, people who end up getting the money. Is it, I guess, number one, to kind of point out, it doesn't have to be paid back like some of the other loans, right? They could go, if they wanted to, hypothetically go buy a Lambo, right? If there's no restrictions on how they could spend it. If it has to be paid back, right? It's not like a loan, it's not forgiven. It's just, why don't you kind of explain that? I guess how much they could potentially expect to see, and kind of a little bit on the timelines.
So first of all, a lot of people hear the word credit because employee retention credit, and they think, oh, this is just a tax credit, the tax credit that's debited against my taxes for the next couple of years. Nope. Right. The reason why they call it a credit, and I was literally at a meeting yesterday with another guy, and then the guy knew another guy that was there, a business owner. And I talked to this business owner 5 or 6 months ago about this, right? His name's David. And I say this because it answers that question in a couple ways. So I'm sitting there talking to David, and he goes, oh yeah, that's right. You're the employee retention credit guy. Man, I've always I can't get that going because I have back taxes. And I'm like, dude, that's the best thing for this. And he goes, what are you talking about? How many employees do you have? He says 30. So I start going over numbers, dude, that you're missing out on $600,000, potentially up to $600,000, $26,000 per W-2. How much, do you mind me asking, how much is your back taxes? He says 123,000. I'm like, what this does and why they call it a credit and not a grant, because you talk about the word free money. I don't like using the word free money. And the reason being is, there's people always like, okay, there's always a catch to free. There's no catch, but there is restrictions. In other words, if you have back taxes, the IRS isn't going to give you $600,000 in his case. They're going to say, okay, you have $123,000 back taxes. We're going to keep that. We're going to send you the difference. He goes, I won't cuss, but he goes, are you kidding me?
Right.
He goes, I can't sleep at night because I have back taxes. This takes care of that and it gives me money. Yep. Right. Dude, I'm calling you tomorrow. And I gave him my office number to call, and he's going to take care of that. But that's why he was holding back. He didn't want to tell me he had back taxes. I'm like, dude, that's the best thing for you. Right. Now on the tax side of things, it's not debited against, it's not a tax credit. Okay. It's a tax refund check. Okay. Very, very little of tax that you're going to pay on this. Okay. It's a refund based on the employee wages you paid, up to 70%. In other words, let's say you paid an employee $10,000 in a quarter, because remember, this is a quarter by quarter basis. Okay. You can get up to $7,000 rebate. It's like a rebate back for paying that employee. I pay that employee 10 grand. They're going to give you up to $7,000 back per employee per quarter. Right. That's what it is, right? You've already paid taxes on that. It's going to be very, very little in tax. So that's what you work with. You still work with your CPA. In other words, like in my buddy's case, David's case, 600,000, let's say, and let's say they wipe out $125,000, at least 475. He needs to tell his tax professional, CPA, or whoever he uses, enrolled agent, that he is going to receive $475,000 back from the employee retention credit minus our 15% fee. So let's say, and that's a thing I like to tell people too, is I get that question. Let's say someone gets approved for $100,000 and we charge 15%. Okay. We get 15,000, they'll get 85,000. They'll have to tell their tax professional that they received 85,000, not 100. Okay.
Right.
So in other words, it's just whatever they received in their pocket is what they have to claim.
Okay, gotcha. And so I think it's what, roughly around, they're seeing up to, or they're saying up to 27,000 or 28,000 per employee, but you're seeing, I guess, an average of what, around 17, 18,000, something to that effect?
So the number's 26. So
Okay.
where that number comes into place is you can get $5,000 for an employee in the year of 2020. And then per quarter 1, 2, and 3 in 21, you can get up to $7,000 per quarter. So 21,000 available up to in 21, and then $5,000 available. And so 5 plus the 21 comes to 26. We're seeing on an average of about $16,000 per employee, but you can get up to 26. You can get the full max if possible, but we're seeing the average is about 16.
Okay, gotcha. And what's like the timeline on that, right? Like, let's say someone signs up, they go through the website today and, they're eligible for X and, they have all the documents to you within, let's say a week. When can they expect to get their check or, their money?
So we tell everyone 6 to 8 months because we've been receiving checks from 6 to 8 months ago.
Okay.
We did get a check that someone filed it at the end of November, which I don't even know what that is. That 4 months ago?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They want to get, the IRS wants to do this in 4 months. They're actually paying interest if it's going longer than that. So they'll pay, let's say your company's approved for $300,000 past the 4-month period, they're going to pay a little bit of interest, for that because they have a backlog. Now this we were actually surprised that someone slipped through the cracks and they got paid in 4 months. We just got the check 3 or 4 days ago. So we're like, whoa, this was done it was like November 16th. And we're like, dude, sweet. Hopefully that continues,
Right.
So, but it is 6 to 8 months. I tell people that's the timeline.
Okay, got it. But now as more people are finding out, right, that seems like it's kind of getting extended out a little bit. It's in people's best interest while the money's here and while they just have to wait that time period to kind of jump on that. How about any negative drawbacks to accepting it? I can't see how there would be, but I talked to one of my friends and he was like, I talked to my accountant and he said that could F me up later on. That would kind of screw me up. But I'm like, I'm not really sure how. I'm like, I haven't come across that. But I mean, is there any negatives to somebody accepting this money that could throw off their, I don't know, their income statement or whatever it may be? Any negatives that they should be aware of?
Nothing on income statement. And I get this question here and there. I think the biggest thing, and I've sat down with a lot of tax professionals. I mean, we have CPAs referring a lot of business to us, right? So I have a lot of relationships that I've built in that regard. The one thing that I've asked them is like, in your eyes, what would be a detriment or something that you would tell your client like, hey, don't do this? He goes, because the PPP was so new, people were going and doing it. And like, I've heard clients, not like this particular CPA said, I've heard people are getting sued for fraud. And I said, okay, I want to hear that because there is very, very little opportunity for fraud here, like under 0.5%. Why is that? The reason being is this is black and white. In other words, a business owner has already filed their 941s. We're amending them. Okay. So the IRS has already seen this document, this 941, just like a 1040. They've already seen the 941 in 2020 and 2021. So in other words, they said, it's kind of like, oh, you can get up to $26,000 per employee. Let's say they had 5 employees they filed in 2020, but yet they tell us, oh no, I had 30. We're looking at your return. It says 5.
Right.
Like I can't put 30. The IRS will notice that.
Yeah.
So it's very black or white. There's just no gray area, right? Even with the supply chain, we can't just say, and the thing is, it is an assessment by the business owner, yes. But what we're doing as a company is we're saying, hey, send us a couple emails from your supplier or explain to us why you've had a supply chain disruption, right? And our team goes into it with them because, again, we don't get paid until they get paid, right? We don't even receive money until they get their check. So we're in this just as much as they are invested. And we're waiting 6 to 8 months to be paid on this. Mm-hmm. So we want attestation. We want all the documents we can to help, the business owner get that money. And so the biggest part that I get from CPAs is mostly that they get scared with, oh, well, people were sued or did wrong fraudulent things in PPP. Well, this is much different. PPP, you just had to say, I have this many employees, I did this. Okay, the money was sent to me in a week from banks, right? And banks were compensated. They were compensated 5% commission on every PPP loan. There was $500 billion to PPP number one. That's $25 billion in commissions that were paid out to banks. I mean, if you remember, our business owners, bankers were just calling you nonstop. Hey, I can help you. I can help you to PPP.
Yeah.
They were compensated, right? So anyways, that's kind of the biggest thing that people talk about. As far as tax side, that's not even an issue with the CPAs I've talked to that understand this, that work with us.
Right.
The piece that they are concerned about or were concerned was that piece. And when I explained, well, these guys have already filed their 941s. Oh, that makes sense. So.
Gotcha. So, we obviously mentioned CPAs a lot. They're an integral part of this. And, I understand that some CPAs, because it's very work intensive, actually hire you guys because they don't have the manpower to go ahead and facilitate this. And obviously, as you mentioned before, you guys don't get paid until, you get a successful, payout. And in which case, that's why I tell most of the, associates and friends, I'm like, listen, just go ahead, fill out the information. It's 10 minutes out of your time. And, it's no harm, no foul, but hey, that's free money just sitting there for you. Just go and see if it's something you're eligible for. And interestingly enough, sometimes we do get a little kickback as far as, oh, I talked to my CPA, he said I wasn't eligible or whatnot. What's the best thing to mention to them, right? Let's say they talked to them a year ago about it. And as you mentioned, potentially they were right at that time. Should they just go to the website, fill it out, and then talk to their CPA? Because I know sometimes, like, what's the part their CPA can play in moving forward if they're obviously going to be on board, moving forward with you guys?
And I think that's the biggest myth is CPAs. I would say don't get upset with your CPA because they're usually not doing your payroll. Like, I would say 10% of CPA companies, firms that I speak to actually do payroll. They do your income tax. They do your 1040s and your 1120s. This is your 941s. If you have a payroll company, ADP, Paychex, Gusto, they don't do this either. They only do, it's a software company. They're a software company. So they don't amend, we amend, right? So as far as the CPA goes, that's kind of the myth, is because usually they don't do this and they don't have the capacity. Like if they talk to their CPA after even listening to this and they're still like, oh man, I'm still on the fence, then let's do a call with your CPA. We want you to feel 100% comfortable. We want you to make sure you're vetting this 100%, right? So we have a team in place. Sometimes I'll jump on the phone with a client and his CPA and explain it. And then once the CPA, I would say 80-90% of them are kind of like, oh, dude, that makes total sense. Yeah, client, let's get this going. And because I don't have the capacity. This is 280 pages of documents that's been amended several times. Being right now, I mean, we're at the first week of March. Is it March?
Yeah.
It's tax season. Like they don't have time to even look at this right now. They're just like, oh my gosh, I'm blinders on because I got to focus on my clients' taxes to be done by April 15th or whenever the date is, right?
Sure.
So it changes a lot. But yeah, that's what I would say is, I think it's easier to go on the website, fill out the information, 5 or 10 minutes. Then it's going to ask you for which documents to upload those documents, give us a week or two. We'll get back to you to the penny. If it's still something like, hey, you know what, man, $343,000.21 looks pretty cool. Let me just ask my CPA one more time. That's fine. I think, like I said, I think people will still like, Google it. I always say, go to ERC credit. I think that Forbes article, because I've had a lot of people that have been on the fence. And then I sent that Forbes article about a week or two ago. And I said, man, if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Forbes, and then they're like, okay, all right, I'm in type of thing, so
sure.
that's my easiest thing.
We'll post that link as well. So, I mean, that was my next question, right? Should somebody just go, and again, they could go to fastercmoney.com and they can go ahead and fill out those questions there. It'll let them know what, I guess, in 5 to 10 minutes if it's something they're eligible for, in which case then they can go ahead, take it to their CPA. And that's great that you guys are available. Like I said, I mentioned to everyone, listen, you're not paying for anything up front. They only get paid if they get you, successful money back. So why not just go ahead and see? It's like I said, there's one associate that may make out pretty well. So I think it's worth the small time that they have to invest in. So with that being said, anything that I left out, as long as they have one W-2 employee, they've affected by supply chain issues, which we addressed were pretty broad. They should just go ahead and fill it out, and then they'll be able to see if they're potentially qualified, correct?
Yeah, I think the one thing to add to when you said buying the Lambo. So the piece to this is obviously made to help the stimulate the economy. So you can use it for anything. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. Like I had a pizza joint that I use as an example that we helped. They already had 5 locations, but we helped them get I want to say it's like $460,000. And their first thing was like, oh my gosh, we can add 2 more locations. And what does that do? That adds almost like 40 new jobs, So that's the main purpose of it. You can go get the Lambo, but you definitely want to help, your own business, to help, pay for 2 more locations that pays for the Lambo. That'd be the main purpose of it. But that is something that people need to know is PPP. It was a loan at first and then became forgiven. This is forgiven when you receive it, right? And you can use it for anything. You don't have to say, oh, I have to use this for employee wages and stuff. Kind of like PPP. In order to be forgiven, you had to use it for certain things in your business, right? This is fully forgiven. And so I think that's the other biggest thing why this is a huge opportunity for business owners right now.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And so, the one W-2 employee requirement, so can that be relative? It can't be the person themselves, right? It has to be, what's the requirements on that? I don't know if we touched too much.
Yeah, so they do ask requirements on relatives and stuff. And on our questionnaire, it goes through that. Again, I think that's kind of like what we've been talking about is don't pre-qualify yourself. Like, it's going to ask you, like, is there any relatives that work in the business? It doesn't mean the whole business doesn't qualify. There's certain employees that might not qualify. So if you have a 10-person staff and, one of them's your wife and one of them's your son, you might not be able to, use all of your son up to $26,000. You have to use a portion of it, probably not the wife, so they have certain restrictions, but you'll just answer the questions the way it says. And then we double check, when we get your employee report, and then we come back to you with that exact number.
Awesome. That sounds great. Josh, I appreciate your time again. I know you got to head out to Cabo. Is there anything that maybe I missed that you get a lot of questions that you like to, address? Because I think this video has been helpful. Definitely something I could share with my associates and whatnot to address all the questions that they've had. And it gives, a good insight. I think this is definitely helpful for sure.
We hit it pretty good. I think one thing we didn't mention is how many employees per company. This is under 500 employees per entity, so per EIN. So if you have under 500 employees, this is a small business association type of credit, not SBA, but it's small businesses. So anything above 500 W-2 employees wouldn't qualify.
Okay, gotcha. Appreciate that. Well, thanks again, everybody. We got Josh here with ERC Specialists, and you can head on over to fastercmoney.com, answer those questions. And that's awesome that Josh is available for you, him and his team. If you have any other questions and whatnot, as he mentioned, he could hop on a call and get you guys taken care of. Josh, I appreciate it, man. I know you got a plane to catch. I guess anything you want to leave off on or whatnot?
No, thanks for having me, bro. Let me know, if you guys have any questions or whatnot, we're here to support you. We also have a online chat on the website, on the bottom right of the website. So if you have a couple quick questions or whatnot, by all means, they're there Monday through Friday.
Awesome. Hey, man, thanks a lot again. I appreciate it. And have a safe flight, and we'll connect with you in the future.
Thanks, bro.